Hi, Sariya.
Hi, Auntie.
Sariya Sayyar, an artist, soon to be a teacher.
Yeah, I just started actually.
See?
Yeah.
So you are an artist, soon to be teacher.
Yes.
Not soon to be artist. Yeah.
Aspiring artist.
Yeah.
I feel like we can always learn, and then,
Yeah.
question your work all the time. And I think
Great.
that's good.
Yeah. I've known you for many years as daughter of one of my best friends, and I see you here and there, and we chat, but we never talked about your art.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, we never have.
Yeah, and then I saw you the other day on TV by coincidence. You had an interview. I fell in love with not just your art, but your passion for art.
Thank you.
And that's what made me, I said, I have to call her and I have to bring her in for her to share that passion with everyone else.
You know what's funny is I think that's how I got part of the reason why I got hired to be a teacher, because I have such an unconventional experience with art and with kids, and then they're like, but you're so excited and you have so much passion, so we're gonna say yeah. And I'm like, okay, great.
That's great. Okay. So what I do is always I start with for you guys to start from high school. Okay. And how you got into say whatever they're interested in or whatever they ended up with, you ended up with art. So what happened in high school, and did it start from there? Take us through that.
Okay, so it started, I've always loved art since I was a kid. I think I have a Madeline photo, and on top it has a little speech bubble, says I love Play-Doh and painting. I've loved it throughout growing up. And it wasn't until I was sort of grade 9 and grade 10 where I drew something and I was like, oh my God, I think I can actually draw. I can actually do this.
Okay.
And so I was like, let me, start to take it seriously. And my sister was like, yeah, you have to, you have to do this. And I started going to artology. That's where sort of my journey began, in artology with Miss Taj Banerjee.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have an interview with
them.
Oh,
you do?
I've already interviewed them.
Nice.
You have to hear their story.
Yeah. And I started there, and I started going, and she started with me with a pencil and a paper, and I'm like, in the beginning you're like, no, I wanna go big, I wanna paint, and she's like, we have to learn the basics first, and I loved everything about that,
Okay.
To this day, those basic skills, you still use so much, and I didn't think I would. Then I did Art IB, and when everyone in class was like, oh my God, this is so hard, this is so much, I did it all day. I would try to leave every other class to go to art and to paint. I found every excuse to do that. Oh no, I have a submission or whatever, and I'd leave English, Arabic, math, just to go to the art building and paint all day.
Okay.
It was so much fun. And I remember at the end of every class, the art teacher would give me a mop because I would make a mess. So every class in the end, he'd be like, before you go to any other class, and he'd pass a mop because I would go crazy. Yeah.
Tell me something. Now, you're in high school, IB.
Yeah.
And you love art.
Yes.
What were your parents' point of view about it? Were they okay with it?
So they always wanted me to be an interior design architect sort of thing, and because they're my parents, and growing up, I wanted to do it, and I thought that's what I want to do because I'm a pleaser, and my parents' approval is really big for me. So after art, I went to Boston to study interior. And in the beginning, I was like, okay, yeah, this could be cool. But deep down, I was like, I knew it wasn't right. But I, like my parents' mentality, didn't see art as a career option, And so I pushed myself to do interior. But some good came out of it in the beginning because I had one of the hardest classes I've ever had, which was color composition. And I learned so much from that. And I had a drawing class too, which taught me blind contour, which taught me all these skills, which are my favorite techniques now. By the end of the year, I was like, okay, I'm not happy. This is not what I want to do. and I applied to St. Martin's. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even believe it myself that this could be an option. I just did that and I was like, whatever happens, happens. I know the year before I got accepted to St. Martin's, but I didn't take it. I still went to do interior. So I was like, I know I can do it. And I just left it. And يعني بالصدفة, my parents got a place in London that year also. So I was like, this is meant to be.
Okay, so St. Martin's is in
London.
England, in London.
Yeah.
And you were in Boston.
And I was in Boston. And I didn't enjoy it there. I don't know if I wasn't ready to leave home yet and go all the way to America. I think that was a big part of it too, with the time difference. I'm definitely, you know, like the little baby of the house.
We know that.
Yeah. So that was a big adjustment, and I wasn't doing what I loved. And so I called my parents one day and I was like, look, I'm going to London. I'm going to CSM. And first they were like, what do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm staying here. And they're like, okay, but I did foundation. So foundation, you do everything. Mm-hmm. You know, you do a jewelry design, you do product design, you do architecture, interior. So they still had hope.
This is at St. Martin.
At St. Martin.
Okay.
And I started in as like, you know, very architecture focused. And I did like that. But every brief they gave me, so for example, we would have a light brief for architecture. Okay. And then you have 2 days to create like a concept project or something. So I took like a huge piece of acrylic. It wasn't that big. And I took a dark room and I painted on the piece of acrylic, and the painting was a shadow. The whole room became the shadow of the painting. Oh. So it was it stuck to the brief of light, but it was through painting. So every brief I had turned out to be like that. And then the teacher was like, you're not in the right place. Okay. Yeah. And I was like, but I can't do art. You know, my parents won't let me do art. And thankfully he was an Arab teacher, and he was like, okay, what do you need? I'm like, I don't know. I need to convince them that I need to do art. And he's like, okay, we're going to send like a letter that we think, you know, you'd fit more to do art. And in foundation, it's not really your choice. They pick for you. Okay. So they picked for me. They moved my classes. I went to art and I fell in love. I was like, this is right, you know?
This is where I have to be.
This is it. And that's where like everything started, and I was exposed to so much. And it wasn't sort of exposure to like technique or materials. It was just exposure to ideas and where this can take you. And I remember after that, I was like, this is so cool, but I don't know if it's the right school.
Okay, so now what are we talking about? After a year, 2 years?
After a year, my foundation. After my foundation.
After your foundation?
Yeah.
Okay.
So now we have to do interviews and we have to pick where we're going to do our bachelor's. So after your foundations, it's like you're reapplying to university. Mm. And so I did interviews all over UAL. And I fell in love with Wimbledon, actually, but it was too far. So I was like, okay, find something else. I went to Chelsea, and all the interviews kept saying, you need to do drawing. I'm like, I don't want drawing. I want painting. Everyone kept saying drawing. Because I did one of the other like briefs was line. And so I made the whole room with like wire. And it was kind of like a maze that you would go through that I did with wire. So everyone kept saying drawing. And I didn't understand at that point. I was like, but my pieces aren't drawing. I didn't understand that my even painting pieces were considered drawings. Okay. Then I moved to Chelsea, despite like I ignored what the interviewers were saying. I'm like, no, I'm going to do fine arts in general. Okay. There is where I feel like I exploded with art, and I got like my confidence in it, and it was so much fun.
So what are we talking about? If you said concept of lines, and then we're talking about art. Yeah. So when you said you exploded when you went there,
it became art. Everything.
So what do you mean by art? Paintings?
So I did installation pieces. I did conceptual pieces. I did an erased drawing of my grandfather. I don't know if you saw that. When I was in Chelsea, I did this a little bit before, but when I was in Chelsea, my grandfather passed away. Mm. So, and he had Alzheimer's. So yes, I did an erased drawing. And I think that's why everyone was pushing me to do drawing, mainly for that piece. where the line, so I tried to memorize his face as much as I can, and then I tried to draw it over and over while looking. Then I did another piece, and it was like in my hallway in my apartment. I like put scotch tape like from one end of the hallway to the other, so I can have a place for my phone to lay while I draw under it, because I wanted to video it. Then without sort of trying to look at the picture, I started drawing his face over and over again and erasing it, to try to memorize it more. And every time I drew and erased and I drew and erased, you sort of get a mumbled face, a mumbled layer of all these faces, which is how I perceived maybe how his mind was by the end, you know, because things are sort of mixing up. And
so tell me this is very interesting. So you draw that first. When you said I drew my grandfather's face, first I thought, I got the impression that you wanted to remember him, so that's why you were drawing his picture over and over and over again, to have him like memorized in your brain, in your mind.
yeah,
Then it turned to another path where you said you wanted to reflect his Alzheimer's in that drawing.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of just process everything that was happening. Find a way to process.
To him.
Him, me, our relationship. Him as, you know, the man of the family that made it all happen. And so I sort of came up with the concept that every time I erase, even when the pencil lines don't go, that despite his memory being gone, his legacy stays. So even if you try to erase, the line won't ever go. You can still see it. And that represents his legacy. So I ended up presenting this erased drawing piece with the video of me drawing and erasing like over it.
I love that.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Okay. So what happened then? Did you graduated?
Yeah, before that, we had a bunch of different projects. So then the idea of family, the theme of family stayed. And then I was like, okay, that's my father's side of my family. Then I thought, how can I represent something with my mom's side of the family? And it's a big family, you know, with lots of kids and people I haven't met. And this is just direct, you know, my mom is one of 14 siblings. So then I thought, I'm gonna try to contact all the kids under the age of, I think it was 16. And I'm gonna...
So these are like your cousins?
My cousins. So okay. I did a family tree first, which was a challenge in itself, to find out all these first cousins. I mean, I know most, the one that are in Bahrain, but there are some that aren't. And the family tree took like 3 days, trying to get all the numbers and everything. And then I asked for a drawing from each kid, or an artwork or a painting. And I sort of gathered all of that into... so I took all their drawings. I made...
Not pictures.
Not pictures.
Not their pictures.
Not their pictures, no. Their art.
Their art. Okay.
Yeah. And I sort of laid them out in my studio, and I was like, okay, now make a painting combining all of them together. Because they're all over, I wanted, but they're so connected. Like the amount of connection there is and bond in my mom's side is so intense. And I think kids sort of create that, you know? When there's any sort of tension or when there's anything happening in the family, you just bring two kids in the middle and they have no idea what's happening, you know, and they're full of love and pure and joy, and they create that bond and they make it stronger, I believe. So I wanted to show that in a painting that represents all of them. So I made sort of a painting and I combined all their little drawings into like a story with their paintings on one big canvas. And that was a lot of fun, but it felt like it wasn't mine, it was theirs, you know. It belonged to the kids.
Okay.
And it's so hard to try to draw like a kid and imitate their paintings. Like I'm like, they're so carefree when they're painting and they're drawing, and I'm so like, okay, I need to get this right, I'm like, that's not what they do, you know. They go crazy. Great, and yeah. So
they're spontaneous.
Yeah. So then, and I had the two youngest at that time was 3 and 2, and I had to combine their drawings too. And one of them just did like 2 lines to get it done, and they sent me a picture. I'm like, okay, how am I gonna incorporate this? And I was like, okay, confetti. You know, like these 2 lines became a whole theme of confetti, and I just like started scribbling, and that's where I sort of let loose a little, and I tried to draw as much as I can, like those toddlers and that carefree.
So now this is a project for the university.
Yeah.
One of your projects. Yeah. Okay. Tell me something. Now I was imagining you with all these drawings in front of you. I don't know if you have seen one of these new series on TV. He's a doctor, and the minute he has a problem, there is a patient in front of him, and he has a problem, all of a sudden they show us like his mind is working, and of course we're seeing it as an image. So he's putting, the parts of the bodies together to get to where the problem is. Now, when you saw that all of these drawings in front of you, something like that happens to you, that you start visualizing putting these together for the end result? What happens in your mind?
It was really funny because it's not something I realized while I was doing it. It's something that sort of came after. My bond with that kid sort of showed in a way of how it's represented in the painting, and I didn't do that intentionally, you know. Okay. Like a kid I never met. It sort of showed. It was like a little bit, out of place. And then a kid I'm like obsessed with, like my cousins that I take out all the time and things like that. They look like the quirkiest, because I know their personality. I can interpret their drawings in that way. I know one kid did like a collage in school, and that was the drawing he sent me. And one of his arms was out, like the glue came off. So the arm of his drawing was out, and that's how I represented in my painting. And he called me and he was like, no, the arm is not there. It fell off. Or his mom sent a message or something like that. I'm like, but that's okay. And so then I created like little bubbles or things that I thought, to fill in that void in my own way. It was fun to see without me realizing how that was going to play out. Right. There was one kid that was in America and one kid that was in Dubai. And then one kid who was like, I'm too old for this. He's like a 16-year-old boy. And I'm like, no, I changed your diaper. What do you mean you're too old? Okay. And then so he was like really focused on in his line. And what I liked was I can see the carefree in kids sort of going away as they got older. And that sort of made me a bit sad. I was like, no, that's so pure, and I wanted it for myself. I wanted to be as carefree as they are. And I think those paintings are so much more interesting than, the older boys that were trying to draw the car like from a picture so perfectly. And you can see the erase marks because he's stressing. He doesn't want to send me something he's maybe not proud of or something like that.
I can see in your paintings and the way you think and all that, it kind of reflects of what we go through life.
Yeah.
Growing up.
Yeah.
How we are so carefree when we're kids, and the imagination is just so vast. No responsibilities. Just taking risk and having fun.
Yeah.
And then you see, as you said, when we start growing, everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be organized. Everything has to be correct.
Yeah, like placed in a box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it reflected in the paintings. So tell me, you put all this together and you came up with a painting. What did you do with that?
I let it be. I let it be as it is. This belongs to the kids themselves, and I just sent it to their parents, and it was a way to show the parents and the kids of how we're all connected.
Yes.
Despite whatever happened, this is a bond you cannot break, and you do it for the kids.
Is it still there in the family? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's the icon in a family group.
Oh my
yeah,
God.
so
okay.
It's nice. But this idea of sort of protecting the kids and protecting your inner child even as an adult. This sort of stays with me still throughout my paintings today. This was a painting I did maybe 2-3 years ago. Still today, it's a theme I'm like uncovering and still exploring. Another thing I did, which also linked to this theme, was I did this sort of a wrecking ball. I don't know if I can call it a wrecking ball, but like I did this big sculpture of a shape called dodecahedron. It's the Pentagon, but 3D.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So I first time entered the wood workshop in university, and I was like, oh my god, all these machines, all these hammers and nails and all these things, but it was fun. I took I think a month and a half to build the shape, and then I wrapped the shape with wool. I did two, one big one and one small one. The outer shape I wrapped with wool, because at that point in my life, everyone still kept saying the ideas of, okay, they think I'm still so young. My parents still see me as this baby. Even I think like in the friend group, I'm like referred to like as the baby of the group, and everyone thinks I'm not exposed. I'm still in this bubble. So I tried to create that bubble, what everyone sees on the outside, and I wrapped it with like so much wool. And here the class sort of came to help, and everyone was like helping me wrap this bubble with wool. It sort of came like a group work, and it was about self-sustainability is what I called it, because this bubble is like a coping or like a protection from the other bubble I did on the inside. So I did a mini dodecahedron, or this circle shape on the inside, and I wrapped with wire this time, and I wrapped stuff like my journal inside, and I wrapped stuff like little notes
representing you as you
inside.
See yourself.
Okay. So the smaller bubble inside is the opposite of sort of outside. This always bubbly, smiley person who doesn't know that the world is like dangerous or things like that. They think the concept, I think Mama still thinks that, like the concept of reality.
I know.
Yeah. And then
that's the beauty of her.
Yeah,
know?
I love it. I mean, and I love being that for them too, and for myself also. In the same time, I think it's important for you yourself to be that. But inside represented different things. It had some wire, some nails, some rougher parts, because everyone does go through these things. And that's okay. It is a small part of the big sculpture. And that sculpture was an installation that was hung on a spring that people can, move.
Okay.
Because I think the outside world is a big influence. So when they move it, and maybe a little bit of the shape might move, or maybe some of the wool might fall, or some of whatever, I wanted to represent that what people do around you can affect you, but it's important for you to like stay strong and hold
on to your inner self.
Yeah.
Okay. So you graduated.
I graduated.
Okay. How did your parents feel by now? Were they convinced?
No.
They were still not convinced.
They're not happy.
Okay, these are parents,
Yeah,
we're parents.
I understand. Yeah. I know they're worried of me finding a career that maybe makes loads of money. But someone told me that their idea of success doesn't have to be my idea of success.
Yeah, absolutely.
I came in and I worked for Mama. That was the deal. Come in and you work with me. And she said 6 months and then decide. I did 9 months and I was like, I can't do this, I'm not fit for sales and commission and all this. This is not what I do. Yeah. Much to her maybe disappointment. Yeah. But I understand why they do that, I know why they worry, but I have confidence or sort of belief. Maybe it's my father says you don't have the concept of reality, maybe you never lived without. And I said, I know that I never lived without, so I know maybe I don't have the right to say this, but I'm not looking for that strive for money or that, you know, that idea of success. And I know he said it's unfair to say that, and I do believe that in a sense, but I have to try it out. You know, I have to believe in myself enough to try it out and to see where it takes me. You know, what's the worst that can happen?
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me something. Now, you're studying abroad.
Yes.
Okay, and you are in this world of art and imagination and creativity, and let's say in an environment where they do appreciate these things. You're coming back home. You've always thought of coming back home, right?
Yes.
You didn't think of staying, outside and
No, maybe for a couple more years, but in general, I want, like, you know, I love Bahrain. I'm so
great.
Connected to my family.
Great. What did you think? How did you think? Now, where would this take me? I'm in art. It's very unconventional. It's not a finance, engineering, medicine. It's art.
Yeah.
I'm coming home. What did you have in mind? What did you think it will take you?
I go about a life maybe the same way I go about my process and my paintings, you know? Let the journey be its journey. If in my painting I know the end result, I'm already bored. You know, I don't want to finish the painting. If I know how it's going to end up, it's not exciting for me. So whatever happens, you know, if you don't know, that's what's exciting. You know, I'm now gonna be a teacher, and oh my god, it's music. I'm like, I have no idea what music. You know, I don't know how to teach kids music. I can teach them art, but they're really young, and I'm like, you know what? It's a journey. It's itself. You don't know what can happen.
What? You're teaching what?
I'm teaching music to kindergartners.
No way.
I know.
I thought you were going to be a teacher in art.
So I can incorporate art in what I'm doing.
So what music do you know?
Nothing. But like I said,
okay, that's interesting.
Let the journey be its journey, and then you go in, and if you're nervous and you go in, and if you're searching and if you're looking, you never know what can happen. You know, you can come up with like things that maybe they haven't come up with their music background. So for example, yesterday, they said, okay, so the first thing they're going to learn is beat, you know, steady beat and steady pattern. I was like, okay, how can I incorporate this in a language I understand? And for the kids to understand, you know, if I can't teach them something I don't get. So then I was like, okay, so we're going to play a beat, and I'm going to give them a paintbrush with paint. And every time they hear a beat, they're going to go pa, pa on a piece of paper, you know, like, yes. and see the splashes. If the beat's faster, so then they're going to go pa, 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 and create a painting in that. So I said, even though it's something I don't understand, it's not something I cannot do. You know, I can do it in a way where I can comprehend it. And that way, the kids can experience a new sort of path for their music, and I think the world is so connected. You know, music and art and English and so, all of this is so connected. So, and they're really young, so their concepts are gonna be simple. You know, the basics. Another thing they said in school that's like, for example, they'll have to learn is sort of they have the theme of a body parts, and I have to come up with a musical way to create that. And I was like, okay, body parts, music, art, what can I do? And I was like, okay, art yoga party.
Oh my god, I love this.
Yeah.
Can I be in your class?
Yeah, of course. Come on. And I was like, okay, so I have to take their theme in English and sort of incorporate it in music, but I can incorporate anything I want as well. So I was like, okay, we can put some songs that you know, make the kids' body moves in different ways. You know, if it's calming, then we're going to do some calming yoga. They're going to dip paint in their hands, and they're going to have all paper around them and sort of stretch. The music goes slow, they're going to go slow. The music goes fast, and their whole body and the whole space is just going to be filled with paint. And so, yes, I'm a music teacher, but I'm doing it in a unconventional way if I can, you know, this, you know. Okay,
tell me something. I'm really interested in this. Yeah. They took you as a music teacher, but they know you are an artist and a graduate of art school. How did that come in? No, really, I'm interested. I mean, I'm not trying to say.
So I'm a TA. I'm a teacher assistant.
Okay.
So wherever they put me, I'm just supporting the other teacher. Yeah, so that's fine.
Okay.
And it's kindergarten, so I can also support their other classes. So I can just find ways to make their other classes more creative. So for example, one teacher today was like, okay, so our first theme is sensory, and this was their English class. I was like, okay, this sounds fun. And so today I was playing with my niece in the morning. She just came from Greece, and I missed her so much, so I woke up really early to go play with her. And she loves cleaning. Like, she loves cleaning. So she went to the little basket of the cleaning things, the spray and the towels, and she found a bottle of soap, and she's like, Leia, play with bubbles. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. Not that, because that probably has like chemicals and things. I took her soap, I took like buckets of water and a big spoon, and she started mixing it. And I was like, oh, this is good for sensory for kids in school. How can I make it like develop it more? I was like, okay, the 5 senses is what they're learning. So every little bit we're gonna add another sense. I can add food coloring. They can place it. They can make bubbles. Place a piece of paper over and see the bubbles get created. Like, so many different ways. So I know I'm technically a music TA, but I can give so much, and if they let me, I can explode with the kids.
I just love the way you're putting all these the concepts together.
Thank you.
They're just amazing. I mean, that's the art in you. That's the artist.
Yeah, I think
you.
My two passions, art and kids.
Okay.
And so whenever I can be with kids or whenever I can paint, I'm never gonna pass that out.
Okay. Okay, tell me. So now you're starting as a teacher.
Yes.
In school, and you have. Where's your art going? What is happening with your art?
Unfortunately, because the mentality maybe of, I don't know, the country or my family, it doesn't take it so seriously. It's hard to delegate the time for my art as serious hours of work. So I paint whenever I can. But like, for example, if someone says, oh, come, let's go, and I tell them, no, I'm going to paint, they don't understand that, no, that means I'm working, or... my mom would be like, oh, come with me to work. And I'll be like, no, I'm going to paint. It's not like, no, I'm working. It's like, she's playing. She's doing her hobby. So I paint as much as I can. It's also a mood. I try not to force it. Otherwise, I don't like the painting. But it's hard to take it as seriously as I would like. But I'm slowly getting there. I'm just starting. So
tell me something. I saw a few of your paintings, and I just, not because you're sitting in front of me, I fell in love with them. Okay. Not because, maybe if I had seen them somewhere, would have passed by, maybe, oh wow, nice, and passed by. I heard you talking about those paintings, the passion behind it and the story behind it. I just fell in love with how you do your paintings. Have you thought of doing a gallery, personal gallery? And
since I graduated, the plan was in 3 months I'm going to create a solo exhibition. A year and a bit passed, and I'm not ready for it yet. I still plan on...
but you're not ready because you don't have paintings. You're not ready because the place is not ready.
No, my paintings are not ready. So the story is not complete.
Okay.
But when will the story really be complete? I don't know. Maybe when I have an answer to all this. I said in the last interview, and I think I'll say it again, is my paintings comes from the conversation you have at night with yourself. Whether you're in your pillow or when you're in the shower and your brain just goes and goes and goes. For me to process everything that's happening up, I need to paint. So painting is not something so much I want. As cliche as that sounds, painting is something I actually need to comprehend whatever is happening around me. So whenever I can comprehend that, then the series is done. Then I can create a gallery. And it's enough time. It's not just enough time for me to comprehend. It's enough time for me to paint those ideas as well. When I'm painting, I'm processing it more, and so the painting changes. I never go into the painting saying this is how it's going to look like. I just know the start. So for example, that story, I know you heard what it was, but I can summarize it really quick.
Please.
So the first one is me within myself, or me within my family, but my family is everything about me. And that's the child in me, you know, I'm one of three, I'm the baby. That's me sticking to my quirky, childlike features, like internally, I mean, and you know, all the magic that sees, like when my dad says, you know, reality that didn't hit you, and all of that. That's the first painting, and I see that as such a privilege that I get to do that. It's because I grew up in a protected environment. You know, so in this painting, you have two fish sort of swarming around me. Those two fish are my parents. They're creating bubbles all around me. It cannot be, to their disappointment, one big bubble that just protects all of me, because, you know, that's life. So they're creating little bubbles all around me of protection. And it's because of that bubbles that I get to be this childlike self, and have this magic, sort of what people say. And I made it in a charming sort of farm-like feature with some flying fish, some like little chickens under me, like barn sort of way. Because I think a barn can represent two things. If I take mama and baba to like a barn, they're gonna be like, you know. But if you take someone else, you know, they can be like, oh my god, I'm gonna put fairy lights here, and we can do this, and we can have, you know, and just make that barn so magical and such an adventure. So that's the first painting. That's a summary of that. The leaves that come in all my painting is also very important. So you see leaves, almost all, not all, but almost all. That's a section I closed now, but it sort of lingered onto my first painting. That represents my Nana's house, my grandma's house from my mom's side.
Okay.
And that's the support, you know, the comfort and the support. And when you're truly yourself, like, for example, today is Friday. Every Friday I go to Nana's house for lunch. That's where you have a place to belong. Other than the bubble, it's because of that I get to stay so, you know, not looking at reality the way people might. It's because of that support. It's because of that love and a place to belong that I have that privilege.
Safe. Yeah,
I have that privilege to feel safe, to be so childlike and not mature as fast as everybody wants me to. Then the next piece after that is the little boy. A little boy I was teaching, I was homeschooling, and he was the opposite of me. He was so full of magic and so full of innocence, you know, and he is running to grow up. He has 3 older brothers, and all he wants to do is catch up with them, you know.
Okay.
And he's everything you see, everything he's trying to do is to prove that I'm a big boy, you know, like I'm not a little boy anymore. And that was so interesting to see, because I was like, why do you want to grow up, you know? Stay young, stay so magical. But I had to appreciate what he wanted, you know, and that has magic in itself, you know. I mean, he's so young, but he has knowledge of so much, and he's so smart, and I had to appreciate that for what it was. And people might judge me, or they might judge him. They might judge me for being like, oh, la, yani she's still young, or yahel, or whatever. People might judge him like, he's so young. Why would he want to do that? Why is he acting so old, and why is he exposed to that, or whatever it may be? And then that got me annoyed. And I was like, no, that's not right, you know? Let him be who he is. Let me be who I am. So that's the third piece in the series. The third piece is I sort of called them like aunties. They're the outside world. They have reactions like, or, you know, like, yes, all of these
judging.
The judgment, yeah. I called it tracking, that piece. Yeah. You have little train tracks around to represent the outside world. The train tracks can be their own journeys, you know. You have your own kids, you have your own life, you have your own passions. Focus on that. Don't focus on him. Don't focus on me, or him and me are concepts, not so much him and me. But there's a track, instead of taking the train that tracks us, you know. Track your own life, track your own path. Now, after that interview, I started this other piece, reacting to that. I just started. I just had one day of working with it. And when you were talking about the box, fitting me in a box.
Yes.
So the background of that piece is a bunch of boxes, and it's a bunch of people layered over each other in a circle. And then a bunch of hands coming into it. It's really hard to explain, abstractly, but you can see it soon on my Instagram. That represents, it's not developed yet. Like I said, it's just one day, so the concept's not developed as much yet. But that represents the different amount of people that you're trying to fit into these boxes. These boxes are straight. These people are round, small, big, thin, fat. They won't fit in these boxes. And so it's round. It's not a square. It's actually like abstract. And the hands that are trying to get in, you won't get in if you stay in those boxes. You won't get to see who those people are, if you try to fit yourself in those squares.
So what is the concept here that are you trying to say that how we fit in people in boxes, how we judge them?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it is about judgment. It's about if you stick in a box and if you put yourself in that box, you won't get to see who these people are. Mm-hmm. And there's so much they have to offer, like, for example, you calling me after seeing that interview and us having this conversation. If you were in that box, you won't get a chance to see, for example, who I was. Mm-hmm. It's because you had an open mind that you got let into this circle abstract piece. If you had a square around you, that it's a wall that can't get to me, and I won't be able to get to you because of that square. So that's a reaction to that piece, and that's sort of how I go about my paintings. It's okay. So what comes next?
Yeah.
What comes next? What can I say to these people? And then what can I say to these people? So in the end, in my series, when you see the first piece and the last piece, if you don't go through it, you'll be like, this is not the same series. This makes no sense.
Do you plan to sell them? You have
theoretically,
yes.
Theoretically, but it's so hard not having these pieces. I've given a few away as gifts when someone really wants it, but they're like, okay, so how much is this? How much is this? I'm like, it will go. Theoretically, I want to sell them, I want to make this my career. Yes. But then I'm like, but it's not done. Yeah, I'm too attached, Yeah. I'm like, that makes no, they're like, oh, this would look so nice in here and here. And I'm like, does that make, but my story is not theirs. They can connect to it in a different way. But in my head, I'm like, but you have no connection to, for example, this and this and this and this. Theoretically, I want to sell them. I want to, show my parents also that this is my career. Absolutely. I want to take.
Yeah.
But in reality, when a painting goes, I'm like, ah.
Well, Sariya, let me tell you this. After all, this I don't know, half an hour or so, the person that the individual that I have come to see now is much more mature than what you think you are. You are in a different level, really.
Thank you.
And I am so happy to get to know this individual, okay, and to share her and her story with all those people that I hope they will come in and listen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Auntie.
Yeah, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And I can see you're going somewhere.
Inshallah.
Oh, yes, you are. Definitely. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for this chat. I enjoyed it so much.
I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.